was folding my grandson's school uniforms when I heard the suitcase hit the bedroom floor upstairs. It wasn't a loud noise, but in the quiet of our old Victorian house, it landed like a gunshot. At 67, after a lifetime of teaching middle school, I developed a kind of radar for trouble. The same instinct that could spot a cheating student from across a classroom was now screaming a warning I didn't want to hear. I set down Mason's pressed white shirt and made my way up the creaking stairs. My son Craig's bedroom door stood wide open. He was shoving clothes into a black travel bag with the desperate, frantic efficiency of someone fleeing a fire. No folding, no care. His work laptop sat open on the unmade bed, its screen glowing with multiple browser windows. Going somewhere? I asked from the doorway, my voice calmer than I felt. He didn't look up. Business trip. Last minute. The lie hung in the air between us, thin and suffocating. Craig worked tech support for a local repair company. They didn't send him on business trips. For how long? Not sure yet. He grabbed his toiletries from the dresser, knocking over a framed photo of his late wife, Linda, holding Mason as a newborn. The glass cracked against the hardwood floor. Craig stepped over the shattered image without a pause. My heart clenched. He used to kiss his fingertips and touch that frame every single night. Now, he walked past his wife's broken image like it was just debris. Craig, stop, I said, stepping into the room. Talk to me. What is really happening here? He finally met my eyes, and what I saw there chilled me to the bone. There was nothing. No guilt. No sadness. Not even anger. Just a cold, flat determination and something that looked terrifyingly like relief. I'm leaving, Mom, he said. I should have done this years ago. The words were a physical blow. All the years I'd spent raising his son while he supposedly worked through his grief. More than a decade of being the mother Mason needed. While Craig disappeared into his computer screen. A decade of holding our fractured family together with my teacher's pension and a grandmother's love. What about Mason? I asked, my voice trembling. He's better off with you. He always has been. Craig zipped the suitcase with a sound of brutal finality. You've been his real parent since day one. Now it's official. The casual cruelty of it left me speechless. He walked past me, and I grabbed his arm. Craig, please. Whatever is wrong, we can work through it. He shrugged my hand off like I was a stranger. There is no family, Mom. There's just you and Mason playing house while I pay the bills. Well, now you can figure out how to pay them yourself. My blood ran cold. What does that mean? But he was already downstairs. I followed, my heart pounding. In the living room, Mason sat at our antique desk, focused on his algebra homework. He looked up as we entered, his intelligent brown eyes so much like his mother's taking in his father's suitcase. And my panicked face. Going somewhere, Dad? He asked, his voice steady. Craig paused at the front door for a moment. I saw his resolve waver as he looked at his son. I need some time away, buddy. Grandma will take care of you. For how long? I don't know yet. Mason nodded once, a quick, analytical gesture. Okay, the simple acceptance in. My grandson's voice broke my heart. No tears, no protests. Just quiet resignation. As if he'd been expecting this all along. Craig opened the door, and the cold October air rushed in. A moment later, he was gone. The door closed with a soft click that sounded louder than a slam. Mason and I stood in the sudden, deafening silence. Is he coming back? My grandson asked, his eyes on the closed door. I wanted to lie, but Mason was too smart for comfortable lies. I don't think so, sweetheart. He closed his algebra book with careful precision. Then he looked at me. His expression transformed into something I had never seen before. On his young face, a look of calm, unsettling certainty. "Grandma," he said, his voice perfectly even. "Don't worry. I'll handle this." Asterisk the words hung in the air, so unexpected and delivered with such quiet confidence that for a moment I was too stunned to speak. "Handle what?" I finally asked. Mason was 13. He was a brilliant, thoughtful boy, but this was a grown-up catastrophe, a gaping wound in the heart of our family. But something in his tone stopped me. There was no childish bravado, just a calm certainty, like a chess master who sees the entire board while everyone else only sees the next move. "What do you mean?" "Mason." He picked up his algebra book, his movements precise. "I need to check our bank accounts first," he said, heading for the stairs. "Then we'll know exactly what we're dealing with. Bank accounts." My 13-year-old grandson was talking about bank accounts. "Mason, wait," but he was already gone, leaving me alone in a house that suddenly felt enormous and unsafe, with a chilling new question hanging in the air. What, exactly, had my grandson been learning when I thought he was just doing his homework? That night, sleep was an impossibility. I lay in bed, listening to the old house settle, every creak and groan magnified in the darkness. Around midnight, I heard it, the soft, rapid clicking of computer keys from Mason's room. I slipped out of bed, my bathrobe pulled tight, and padded down the hallway. Light seeped from under his door. The typing was steady, rhythmic, far too focused for a boy who should be sleeping. I knocked gently. "Mason, it's past midnight, sweetheart." "Come in, Grandma." I pushed the door open to a scene I couldn't comprehend. Mason sat at his desk, still fully dressed, surrounded by notebooks and stacks of printed papers. His laptop screen glowed with multiple windows of data streams and code I didn't recognize. "What are you doing?" "Research," he said, gesturing to the papers. "I've been going through Dad's digital footprints for the past 3 hours. Digital footprints." I moved closer. The papers were bank statements, credit reports, email printouts, all bearing our family name. "Mason, where did you get these?" "Dad isn't very careful with his passwords," he said, his tone matter-of-fact. He clicked something, and a new window opened, showing Craig's email account. "He uses the same one for everything. Linda 2010, the year they got married." My stomach dropped. "You hacked into your father's email?" "Technically, I just logged in," he corrected gently. "It's not hacking if he left the door unlocked." "Grandma, you need to sit down. What I found is worse than we thought." I sank into the chair beside his desk, my legs suddenly weak. Mason handed me a printed statement with my name at the top. I stared at the numbers, blinking hard. This can't be right. My savings account, it shows a balance of $12. It's right. His young voice carried a weight. No child should. Dad didn't just leave. He's been draining our accounts for months. The paper trembled in my hands. $12. Decades of a teacher's careful savings, gone. What about your college fund?" He handed me another statement. The account that should have held over $43,000 now showed a balance of 0. The word came out as a choked whisper. "No, 3 weeks ago. Dad transferred it all to his personal checking account." Then Mason's fingers flew across the keyboard. He moved it somewhere else. "He's been working with someone. Her name is Vanessa Torres." He pulled up a social media profile of a smiling, dark-haired woman. Professional photos, exotic vacations, inspirational quotes about living your best life. She's his girlfriend, and she's been helping him move the money, create new accounts, and apply for loans using our information. His jaw tightened. "Grandma, They've been planning this for months. The room began to spin. What kind of loans? Mason clicked to another document. A $30,000 personal loan. Using your name and social security number. A $15,000 credit card. Using my social security, with my age faked as 25. They forged the signatures. Identity theft. My own son had stolen not just our money, but our very names to fund his escape with the scammer. How do you know all of this? I've been watching him for weeks, Mason said, his voice turning cold. The secret phone calls. The way he'd quickly close his laptop when I walked in. I started paying attention. Then I learned how to see what he was hiding. YouTube tutorials, mostly. Online forums about cybersecurity. It's not that hard once you understand the basics. I stared at my grandson, this quiet boy I thought I knew, and realized that while I'd been packing his lunches, he'd been teaching himself the art of digital warfare. Asterisk, I stared at my grandson, this child I'd raised from birth, and realized I'd been living with a stranger. While I'd been helping him with homework, he'd been teaching himself the art of cyber warfare. Mason, this is illegal. What they've done to us, I know, he said, his voice unnervingly calm. That's why I documented everything. He opened a folder on his desktop labeled simply Evidence. My breath caught. It was filled with dozens of meticulously organized files, screenshots, bank records, and the full, damning email conversations between Craig and Vanessa, discussing their plans to disappear and start over with their money. They were planning to change their names and move to Jacksonville, Mason said, his expression hardening. They were. His expression shifted to something I'd never seen on his young face before, not anger, but a look of cold, calculated satisfaction. Their plans hit a few snags today, Grandma. Before I could ask what he meant, his laptop chimed with an email notification. He glanced at the screen and a small, chilling smile touched his lips. That, he said, would be Dad's bank calling about the fraud alert I filed this afternoon. You filed a fraud alert. I filed several things today. Fraud alerts with all 3 credit bureaus. Identity theft reports with the FTC. Complaints to the State Banking Commission. He leaned back in his chair, the picture of composure. I also sent some very interesting, anonymously compiled information to Vanessa Torres' employer regarding her unauthorized access to client accounts. My mouth fell open. Mason, what have you done? I protected us, he said simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Dad thought he could steal from us and walk away clean. He thought we were too trusting, too helpless to fight back. He was wrong. The laptop chimed again, a second notification. Mason glanced at the new email and his smile widened. And that, he said, turning the screen so I could read it, would be the automated HR confirmation that Vanessa Torres has been suspended from Meridian. Financial, pending and immediate. Investigation into client account irregularities. I felt dizzy. My head spun with the sheer velocity of it all. While I'd been weeping in my room, wondering how we would pay the mortgage, my 13-year-old grandson had been systematically dismantling the lives of the 2 people who had betrayed us. He hadn't just handled it. He had launched a full-scale, precision counterattack. How did you learn all this? I whispered, a sense of awe mixing with my fear. The same internet that taught Dad how to commit financial fraud, he said. A cold fire in his eyes taught me how to stop it. He finally closed the laptop and looked at me directly. Grandma, they didn't just steal our money. They tried to steal our future. Someone had to make sure there were consequences. I looked around his room with new eyes at the neat stacks of evidence. The calm determination of a child who had been forced to become his family's own protector. I saw the man he was going to be. And for the first time since Craig had walked out the door, I felt a flicker of something other than despair. It was a strange, fierce, and unfamiliar feeling. It was hope. Asterisk the next morning. I woke to the smell of coffee. I found Mason in the kitchen, 2 plates of scrambled eggs already set on our small breakfast table. I figured we both needed our strength today, he said, pouring me a glass of orange juice with the careful attention of a man 3 times his age. I spent the rest of last night digging deeper into Vanessa's background, he said, pulling out a manila folder. What I found is going to help us, but it's also pretty disturbing. He handed me a printed document, a police report from Toledo, Ohio. Vanessa Torres had been arrested for embezzlement, but the case was dropped when she agreed to pay restitution. They never checked her background properly at Meridian, Mason said, his tone grim, because she's been stealing from her current clients, 2 elderly people, grandma, people your age who trusted her with their retirement. My hands shook as I looked through the evidence. He had compiled bank statements, transfer records, page after page of victims. This is horrible, I whispered. It gets worse, he said, turning his laptop screen towards me. Dad knew about all of it. He was helping her cover her tracks. The screen showed email conversations. My son discussing how to hide stolen funds, how to create false digital trails, how to make elderly victims think they're missing money was a market loss. Craig hadn't just been a fool blinded by love. He had been a willing accomplice, a predator. Dad didn't just betray us, Grandma, Mason said, his young voice filled with a cold disgust that broke my heart. He's been betraying innocent people for months. I pushed my breakfast away, my appetite gone. How many victims? 17 so far. Total losses over $400,000. Mason closed the laptop, but I think I can help them get their money back. I'm going to send anonymous packages to each of them, complete documentation of what happened and instructions for how to report the crimes. I looked at my grandson, this child who was now a vigilante for the elderly, fighting a war I didn't fully understand. For the first time since Craig walked out, I felt something besides fear. I felt pride. 3 days later, the phone rang. It was Craig. His voice was a strained, desperate whisper. Mom, we need to talk. Something's wrong. Everything's falling apart. Someone is targeting us. I glanced toward the stairs, where the soft clicking of Mason's keyboard was a steady, rhythmic pulse. What kind of targeting, Craig? My accounts are frozen. Vanessa got fired. The police are asking questions about identity theft. His words tumbled out in a rush of panic. Mom, someone knows everything. They have records of things that should be private. Maybe your private things weren't as private as you thought, I said, my voice cold. The line was silent for a moment. How do you know about that? He finally asked, his voice laced with suspicion. The other families, the same way the police. No, Craig. The same way Vanessa's former employer knows. You didn't just betray your family. You helped that woman steal from innocent people. She's not a criminal, he shouted. She just made some mistakes. The clicking from upstairs stopped. A moment later, Mason appeared silently in the kitchen doorway. Craig, you need to face reality. Your girlfriend is going to prison for embezzlement, and you're probably going to prison for fraud. Prison. His voice jumped an octave. No one is going to prison. Just then, Mason held up his laptop. The screen showed a local news headline. Local financial advisor arrested in embezzlement scheme. You should probably turn on the news, Craig, I said. Why? Your girlfriend was arrested this morning. The sound that came through the phone was somewhere between a sob and a scream. That's impossible. Mom, if they arrested Vanessa, They're going to come for me next. I need help. I need money. Mason walked to the kitchen counter and scribbled on a notepad, showing it to me. Keep him talking. Police are 5 minutes away. My heart nearly stopped. He had called them. I can't help you, Craig, I said, my voice steady. You took everything. Our savings, Mason's college fund. You left us with $12. $12? He choked out. Mom, I have to go, he said suddenly, his voice now a defeated whisper. I could hear muffled, official-sounding voices in the background. The police are here. Through the phone, I heard the sound of handcuffs clicking shut, an officer's voice reading him his rights. Conspiracy to commit embezzlement. The line went dead. Mason closed his laptop and sat across from me. Is it over? I asked. The arrests are over, he said, his voice carrying that same calm certainty. But yes, Grandma, the part where we were victims is over. Now we get to be survivors. 6 months later, the quiet of our new life was punctuated by a single, official-looking envelope from the district attorney's office. I was reading a novel at the kitchen table when Mason burst through the door, his face alight with more excitement than I'd seen since before his father left. Grandma, check this out, he said, dropping his backpack and handing me the letter. My hands trembled slightly as I read the words. Restitution payment in the amount of $18,400. That's from Vanessa's liquidated assets, Mason explained, practically bouncing on his feet. They sold her car and jewelry. We're getting back almost half of what Dad took. Mrs. Miller is getting $22,000, and Mr. Hayes got his full amount back, $18,000. It wasn't everything, but it was enough to breathe again. It was enough to start rebuilding. And your father? I asked softly. Mason's expression grew more serious. 5 years in federal prison. He pled guilty to avoid a longer sentence. He paused, his gaze meeting mine. His lawyer says he might get out in 4 with good behavior. For years. I didn't know how to feel about that. And I didn't have to. Mason had already moved on to his laptop, his mind already on the next battle. He showed me a professional-looking website he'd built. The header read, Family Financial Protection Services, keeping families safe from financial fraud. Remember how I said I wanted to help other families? He asked. I've been working on this for months. I've already helped 12 families recover stolen money, and I taught a seminar at the Senior Center about online safety. At the bottom of the page, I saw the founder's name, M. Bennett, Certified Financial Crime Prevention Specialist. Certified? I asked, my eyebrows shooting up. Took an online course, he grinned. Passed the exam last month. I'm probably the youngest certified financial crime specialist in the country. I looked at my grandson, this remarkable young man who had forged a weapon out of our pain and turned it into a shield for others. He wasn't just a survivor. He had become a protector. The phone rang one evening, a few weeks later. I glanced at the caller ID and froze. Springfield Correctional Facility. It was Craig. I stared at the ringing phone, my heart pounding. I thought of the man who had abandoned us, the stranger who had stolen his own son's future. The phone kept ringing, a desperate plea from a world I no longer belonged to. After 6 rings, it went to voicemail. 2 minutes later, it rang again. I picked up the phone, and without answering, I turned it off. Some bridges, once burned, don't get rebuilt. Some consequences last exactly as long as they should. Upstairs, I could hear the faint, steady sound of Mason's voice. He was on a call with another family, his young voice calm and reassuring as he explained how to document abuse and protect the people they loved. My grandson had learned a lesson that took some people a lifetime to understand. When someone hurts your family, you don't just survive. You make sure they can never hurt anyone else's family either. I smiled and went back to my life, listening to the quiet, steady sound of justice being served, one phone call at a time.